I am your host, Danielle Mims. Welcome to Think Like a Kid, the podcast that helps parents and teachers stop guessing and start teaching the way kids actually learn. After working with hundreds of kids, I can promise you this: one-size-fits-all learning doesn't work. It's time to stop making kids fit the system and start shaping learning around the child. Each week, you'll get quick wins, creative ideas, and brain-based strategies to make learning hands-on and fun again. So whether you're in the classroom, the car, or halfway through your coffee, I am so glad you're here. Let's think like a kid. Welcome back to Think Like a Kid. Today, we are going to swap out our overly stressed out adult brains for a little bit of childhood wonder, curiosity, and play. Parents today honestly live in an era of intense pressure. We're told that our toddlers need educational apps and flashcards and special toys and kits and structured activities just so that they can develop at the normal rate and express themselves. And it's exhausting. We're in this comparison trap. It's expensive, and it just takes the fun out of parenting. So today we have a very special guest, and she's on a massive mission to prove that parents already have it. She wants to help 1 million parents create language-rich homes for their infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. Jennifer Adams Oppenheimer is a pediatric speech-language pathologist, a board-certified specialist in child language, and the founder of the Speak Joy Center for Development. She has decades of experience training families all over the world, and she takes those intimidating scientific research and turns it into simple, joyful, real-world steps that actually fit into our messy, busy family life. We are so excited to welcome her to today's show. Jennifer, welcome to Think Like a Kid.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here. Thank you.
Yes, we met, was it about a year ago, right?
It was?
Yes,
Yes.
the beauty of social media is where you can just meet like-minded people and build these relationships. And so we met about a year ago, and we've stayed in touch. And why don't you tell us a little bit of what you do? Let's talk about like Speak Joy Center for Development. We'd love to hear what that passion project has been like for you, and just a little bit about you.
Yes, you bet. So I'm a speech language pathologist. I actually started my career in working with middle schoolers and high schoolers, which I loved, which was great. And then I got a job where I did early intervention in a private practice, and I fell in love with toddlers and preschoolers, with the little ones, and especially working with families. And so that has just fueled this last couple of decades of really focusing on early language development and supporting parents in that process. So what we do at Speak Joy is we support professionals who are working with young children, like speech pathologists, but also occupational therapists and early childhood educators and parents, in knowing how to turn everyday routines and the things that we do into opportunities for connection and language. And just like you said, one of my things that I feel so passionately about is that parents really are the best thing for their children, for language and learning and connection. And so the more that we can support parents in feeling confident in that and being able to really step into their own power as parents, all things are better for children and their development.
I love that. That's so beautifully said. And it's such a cool job, to just support, all the different professionals working with kiddos. I think we really vibed with that when we first met, just about everyday life and like how you don't need what everybody else thinks they need. So I kind of want to, you talk about babies and toddlers and preschoolers. I kind of want to start with babies, because when I think of babies, I kind of laugh at myself a little bit, because when my husband and I brought home my son, my firstborn, we like put his car seat on the kitchen table, and we were just like, well, what do we do with him? Like, we just didn't even know. And I spent years and years teaching, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So what would you say, like, for a parent who has a baby, what are the best, like, everyday things that you would recommend?
I love this so very much. So I think, so whether we're talking about babies, toddlers, or preschoolers, or even adults, I think we can first think about there are 3 ways that children learn, even babies, but also adults. Like, there's 3 basic ways that we learn. And the first is heuristically. That's like a technical word that really just means with exploration, by doing things, by having experiences. So if we know that that's one of the ways.
Mm-hmm.
Another way is repetition, is by doing something over and over again. And of course, we can think about this with children in so many different ways, right? We can think about
Yeah.
a toddler who will dump out a bucket of blocks over and over and over and over again. But even for me as an adult, I am an adult cello learner. I started playing the cello
Nice.
about 5 years ago.
Wow,
And
great.
repetition is the way that I'm learning to play the cello, this thing that is new. If there's a passage I don't know, I break it down and I play those notes, 3 notes, over and over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
So repetition is another way. And the third way is interaction. We learn by
Mm-hmm.
children with other children, children with parents, etc. So if we're thinking about a baby, and we're thinking about those three things that we learn, a baby learns by doing things with repetition and with interaction. We all know little babies don't do a lot intentionally, right? A lot of it is just how things work with nature. But those other two, repetition and interaction, are the key for a little baby. So the interaction part in talking and singing, in really narrating kind of what's happening, and even at that young age to have what we call a verbal routine, which I'll explain a verbal routine. If we have certain verbal routines that are inside of our everyday routines, that's like the secret sauce of building
Ooh, I'm
engagement
excited.
within a routine.
Yeah.
So let me break this down, and we could talk about this as a baby, but then the same thing, this is the secret, the same thing kind of goes for a toddler or a preschooler.
Okay.
So we know we have daily routines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about our daily routines, I'm going to talk about them in two categories. There's the have to do routines.
Okay.
So these are like changing a diaper, dressing a child, putting on a jacket to go outside,
Mm-hmm.
feeding or mealtime, right? Those are the have to do's.
Yes.
Things you have to do every day. Then there's the fun to do or the want to do kind of routines. And those things could be like taking a walk after dinner, like taking a family walk, or going to the library every Friday afternoon, or making pancakes together on Sunday morning, right? So
Yeah.
those are things that can be routines. We don't have to do them, but they're the want to do's. So whether we're talking about the have to do's, which we really actually do 100 times a
Mm-hmm.
day, like change a diaper, wipe a face, all of those things, if we can put a routine, a verbal routine into that daily routine, that's the magic. So a verbal routine, what a
Yeah.
verbal routine is, it's when you say or say the same thing inside that routine every time you do it. So I'll give you an example. I'm sure you and all of your listeners have done this. So I'm just going to
Without
label
even
something that
probably realizing it. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So an example, I'll just give a couple of examples. So let's say you are taking your baby or your child to daycare, and you do that every single day. You put them in the car seat, and then you open the door when you're about to take the child out, or you're going on errands or wherever. You're
Mm-hmm.
opening the car door, and if every single time when you open that car door, you say hello in the same way, that becomes a verbal routine. So it's like expected. Like the child is waiting for you to say the same thing, like "Hello, little one," or your little
Yes.
nickname for that child, but that you're doing it intentionally. You're going to open that door. You're looking at your child. It's like this
Uh,
excited,
okay.
anticipated thing that you're going to do every single time you open that door. So then that child knows that they're anticipating this thing that's about to happen. And if for a young child, like a baby who is not yet using words, but they're listening and learning,
Yeah.
then those verbal routines sometimes become those early words because it's something that they've heard over and over and over and over inside of that routine.
Interesting.
So I'll give you another example. So
Oh yeah,
same
I
thing.
want to know all the examples because I'm like, as a baby, like picking up a baby out of a crib, I'm always like, "Hello," just like so excited, and then it's like so happy and happy and happy. And then I was thinking of it for, toddler and preschooler, and I'm like, I'm trying to think of a routine, like a verbal one that I have, and I have questions about this too. So yeah, give me another example.
So another example for a toddler or even for a baby, but let's say every time you're putting on a shirt sleeve or a jacket, You
Mhm.
you put in one arm sleeve and you say, "1 arm, 2 arms," something like that, where but you're going to do it every time.
Okay. Yes.
Or let's say you put a shirt over a child's head and let's say your child's name is Mary and you say, "Where's Mary?" And then the head pops up, "There she is." So
Uh,
that
oh,
and you
okay.
do that every single time, like, "Where's Mary?" Head pops out, "There she is." So you're saying that's a
Uh-huh.
verbal routine inside of a daily routine. And the beauty of this is that if you do this every single time you put a shirt on your child's head, which sometimes is 4 times a day because
Yeah.
they've gotten messy, then that's just it's like a built-in way that your child has predictability, but it's
Mhm.
also easier for you as the parent that you don't have to think about things. It's kind of set up. Like, this is the set of thing we do inside of this, and it creates a beautifully rich language environment for your child. So it kind of checks a lot of boxes at the same.
Yes, I love that. I'm a huge, huge advocate on visual schedules, and I've seen
Absolutely.
them work for my students. I've seen them work for my kids. That's a game changer. And I never really thought about the verbal, right? So is this I mean, even okay, so when you were talking about the one sleeve in or the one arm, two arm, just doing that and having that predictability. Sometimes when I'm trying to co-regulate my own because I'm just so frustrated at the end of the day and I'm like, just put your shirt on, you know? I'm just like, instead, sometimes I'm like, if I'm telling myself to just breathe or, whatever it is, having that is kind of like good for the parent too, because they can rely on this signal, this verbal signal of like, this is what's happening next. So is this something that is like for kids who struggle or for all kids, or what do you think?
I would say all kids. I
Okay.
All kids can benefit, and I'll tell you why. Because children, like adults, we always say children like these things, but so do adults, right?
Yeah.
Predictability and routine is helpful. It's helpful for everyone from a regulation standpoint. Some children and some adults need more support with regulation and predictability, but all people, no matter if someone has a diagnosis or not,
Hmm.
all people thrive in environments where there's routine and predictability. Not that every single thing has to be exactly the same every day, but if there are certain routines that happen,
Hmm.
we all do better, both children and adults. So I agree. It's a great way of supporting you as a parent, all parents, in those moments of fatigue, in those moments of I have given the last that I can give in this day, and there's still miles to go. Sometimes those
Yes.
routines are kind of what we can all hang on to, children and adults.
Yes, I'm going to use this, like, tonight because what I do if I'm about to lose it and yell or something, I just start singing
Yeah,
instead because it helps me not lose it on my kids, and I'm just like, "I've told you to put on your shirt so many times," and when you switch up your language or, your typical too, sometimes they're just like, "Huh? Okay, now I'll listen," because it's, like, different. But I'm
completely.
gonna I'm gonna start doing this
I
verbal
love it.
routine.
Can I add something about the made up song that you just demonstrated so
Yeah,
beautifully, which I love so much?
yeah.
Made up songs, verbal routines can also be sung.
Okay.
And verbal routines, when I say sung, I mean made up songs, just like
Mhm.
what you just did. It's a beautiful way. There also can be a certain song that happens every single time, like if it's time to put on your jacket to get outside, that if you start singing the same little made up song, like to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, does not have to be
Mhm.
magic, but it could be like, it's time to put our coats on now. It's time to put our coats on now. Coats on now. Coats on now. I don't know. You make up the words, but that can also become a cue, like
Yes.
auditory cue, and a sung verbal routine. So
And
yeah,
now that you're saying that, I'm like, "Okay, wait, that makes sense," because I published a preschool curriculum for parents and for teachers, and the very beginning of the day is like a positive mindset song, but it serves as the cue to start the day where it's like, "My brain is growing every single day," and they hear it, and that's like you're supposed to like train your child or your students like that means the school day is about to start, right? Like the
yes,
lesson.
yes.
So, yeah, it's good to hear this from a speech and language pathologist. I'm like, oh yeah, wait, this is legit. Okay.
Yeah, totally. And just like you said, like that, it serves as a transition cue, right?
Yes.
And so if you as a parent, if you're thinking about, for all of our listeners, if you're thinking about where are the places in my daily routines where things
Mm,
start falling apart,
mhm,
and I'm sure you can think about, okay, it's when we're trying to get out the door and get, we have to drop off daycare at this time so I can be at work at this time. Maybe that's your fall apart time. Or maybe it is trying to end play to get into the bath at the end of the day,
mhm,
right? Like wherever that trip up time is, that is a great time to say, to be intentional and say, okay, I'm going to insert a transition song when it's time to do this thing that then can kind of be joyful. Somehow singing kind of makes things a little more joyful than
yes,
yelling or sing it 12 times. And
yeah,
so that can then serve as a beautiful way of inserting a routine inside of that routine. The song is the
uh-huh,
routine inside of that daily routine of the cue, the transition cue. It's time to clean up these toys and get in the bath or wherever the breakdown point is.
yes, I love that, and the kids can even help make up a song too. My kids listen to me make up crazy songs all the time, and they're like, "Mom," but they love
Absolutely.
it. They love it.
Absolutely. So, like at the beginning, you were saying, well, what about babies? What about toddlers? What
Yes,
about preschoolers? Everything that we have talked about actually works
is
for
applicable.
all
Mhm.
of those ages. What changes, the things that change, is how complex your language is. For a baby, your language is a little more simple. For a toddler, it's a little bit more complex. For a preschooler, it's a little bit more complex. And the expectations, of course, change. Like
Mhm.
when how much participation that child is going to have inside of that routine as that child gains more.
Yeah,
But really, the principles we've talked about apply for that little tiny baby
right.
who just came home from the hospital, like that little baby, as well as a 4-year-old or 5-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, even I did the taking care of babies, like, sleep training with my kids, and one of the routines is the song, right? So you sing a song, and our song happened to be for all of our kids, Frankie Valli, "You're just too good to be true." So anytime the baby would hear that, it was just like the end of the routine, right? And it signaled it, and all of our kids were successfully still are sleep trained, and I think that did play a huge part of like that's the last step, and then you're going into the crib.
Such a beautiful example of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can also think about, like, in a getting ready for bed routine, there could be a
Mhm.
few little routines that are inside of that, and singing
Yes.
could be part of that, reading a book could be part of that. If
Uh-huh.
if a family prays, praying could be part of that. I mean, whatever works for that family
Mhm.
culture, but to be thinking about what are the routines inside of this routine that's gonna help create some structure, give a signal to the child, a signal for yourself. It just creates a little bit of calm. And going back
Yes.
to your point at the beginning, all of this is where the most powerful learning happens. And it's not on an app or with a screen or with even purchasing anything, right? This is
Right.
just parental intuition and connection, attunement
Mhm.
is the fancy word for that. But that attunement or connection and knowing what that child needs and building that into a routine, into those daily
I
routines.
Yes, I absolutely love that, and I hope that the listeners that are, making it this far are like, "Oh, wait, I do that," because even though I have talked to you about this, I've done this, I've read the research, I still am like, "I don't know if I do any of that," and then now I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yeah," like, my dad would drop me off to school off at school when I was a kid, always would end it with a prayer, like, intentional day of, like, setting me up for success, and now I do that with my own kids, so every time I drop off Liam to kindergarten, I pray for him and his day, and then my other 2 kids in the car are like, "Don't forget to pray for me," they love it, they just they love that, so now that we're even just
Yep.
talking on this live, right,
Mhm.
I'm just like, "Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, there's so many
Mhm.
moment." So I think to just even encourage the listeners to reflect and see how much you're already doing. And then, like what you said, where are those difficult times? And transitions are very hard for toddlers and preschoolers, right? And just adding those in.
Yeah. I love your that insight of taking some inventory of how great you're already doing. Because most parents are already doing this without being totally cognizant of it. And then once you kind of hear or have the
Mhm.
frame of this is actually where learning happens, it's inside of this repetition and inside of, this box of a routine, then you can kind of take that deep breath and say, I'm already doing a great
Yeah.
job. And here's a place where things are falling apart. So I'm going to take these
Yep.
things that I'm already doing a great job at and apply it into another spot within our daily routines.
Yeah. And as a like, what do teachers do? They literally use songs and language and rhyming and like word games to get 30 kids to listen at the same time, right? Like it's not
Absolutely.
so yeah, it's all right there. So I guess I have a question. I don't think I've ever asked you, but what's your story? Like why, when, and why did you become so passionate about language? Like,
Mm,
was there a point or in your life where you're like, "It needs to be like, I wanna be a speech and language pathologist," or was it very early on, or
yeah.
did like, I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's such a great question. I was one of these very nerdy high schoolers that felt like I needed to know exactly what I was going to do before I graduated from high school.
Mhm,
And so in that quest of figuring that out, I was a candy striper at a hospital in our town, and I realized I love the medical field, but
mhm,
I realized I did not want to be a nurse. Like
mhm.
what the day in day out part of nursing was not the thing I wanted to do. And I didn't want to be a doctor because I didn't want to be in school for that long.
Yeah.
So I knew that medical was interesting, but not either
Little did you
place.
know you'd be in school for the rest of your life.
I know, right? Who knew? Who knew?
Yeah.
So there was that. I thought about being a teacher,
Uh-huh.
and I worked as an aide for a kindergarten and a first grade teacher as a high school student. And I loved in that situation, I realized I did not like having to be responsible for 20 kids at once.
Mhm.
But what I loved is when there was one or two children that weren't understanding things as quickly as the other children, and the teacher would ask me to support that child in letter identification or whatever it was. I love that. I loved working with the children that weren't quite like all the other children that were having a little
Mhm.
bit of difficulty. I gravitated to that place. And so someone suggested I had never heard of speech therapy before. It just wasn't in my frame.
Mhm.
Someone suggested the field. And when I looked into it, I thought this is the perfect blend of the medical, the science, that piece, and then the education part. Like if you put those two place things together, you end up in speech therapy. Like that's kind of the midpoint of those two worlds.
Yeah.
So yeah, so from there, as I started learning within the field, I became very clear that to me, being able to, for a child to be able to connect and communicate with the people that are most important to them is the most foundational thing. And that's why I really became passionate about it. And not all communication needs to be verbal, right? There are many other
Uh-huh.
ways of connecting with communication, but then that makes me feel excited too of helping to validate all forms of communication so that children and parents can connect together, really so that families are made stronger. That's really like the foundation of why I feel like communication is so important is that it is the foundation of connecting families. So that's like the deep, deep
Yeah,
place.
no, I love it. You're so well spoken too, and I didn't tell you I was gonna just throw that at you. So
I love
thanks
it.
for no, I was just interested,
Mhm.
and it's funny too because nurses and teachers like get along right away because we both have very like different but very similar professions too.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much speech and language pathologists did until I became a mom, actually. My son had an SLP when during COVID when he was a baby on the computer and it was for swallowing, like
Oh yeah.
there's so many things that speech and language pathologists do
Yes.
that I thought I knew. I was like, "Oh yeah, no, they push into the classroom or, do an intervention." It's like, "No, no, no. You need a SLP in your life and we have
Yeah.
one right here for free." So you
So
also things that parents can do with their kids at home. I know when we chatted last, we were like going through fun language games that moms or dads can do at home. Like we were talking about even like doing the laundry and counting and matches and how you can incorporate these language rich opportunities. So I
Well,
don't know if you have any on the top of your head that you would like to share so that I love to give like quick wins to the people
sure.
listening so they can just like go over to their kid. Some kids actually listen to this too, which is cool. So
So
with their
fun.
parents, but
Yeah.
so that they could just turn this off and then go try it right now.
Yeah, totally. Let me think. So I'm gonna share a couple things that are built into routines since
Okay.
that's what we're talking about. So let's take a bath time routine. One kind of quick fun game that I think is great during bath time is playing Will It Float? So because then it also builds in some of those science
Oh
concepts.
yeah.
I mean, without saying we're going to now work on science or whatever,
Mhm.
but in a playful way, like Will It Float is a fun thing that can happen every day and to bring other things into the bathroom to be seen
Yeah.
if they'll float, like a quarter or whatever, not just the bath toys that we
Yes.
kind of would assume. So playing with found materials in your home and playing a game like that, I think is super fun. Let me think. I love for more like preschool age kids.
Mhm.
I love doing random categorization kinds of games when you're like out on a walk. Let me give you an example of this. Let's say we're in the routine of you go for a walk every night after dinner. Let's
Okay.
say that is a fun to do routine that you
That's my
decide
goal.
to
Mhm.
insert in, right? Not a have to do, a fun to do. And so let's say in the summertime, you're going like the fun connection there is that we're all going to be looking for ladybugs. And so, as you're taking your walk, you're looking for ladybugs. Then you can compare and contrast ladybugs. Like if you find a few, how are they the same? How are they different? If it's in the fall, you might pick up a leaf and say, let's find a leaf that's bigger than this leaf. So then you have bigger and smaller, like that comparison.
Mhm.
So I think that it turns into a game, right? It is a game, but really we're just exploring with language and the things that are around us. Or even when in winter, if you're going for that walk and we can say, how deep can we make our footsteps in the snow? If we're like if we're thinking about here's a language principle. The rich get richer and the poor get poor. The more rich the language is that we use,
Mhm.
the richer the language that our children hear and the richer the language they will use. So if we're using concepts like, let's see if we can make our footsteps deeper, deeper isn't a word we're always using, but if we're using that kind of language and they're
Uh-huh.
hearing it, then they'll be more likely to use it. So the
Ooh,
rich
I
get
love
richer,
that.
the poor get poorer, meaning if we are only ever using the word big for something big, we never use huge, we never use humongous, we never use ginormous, we never use those other words, then
Mhm.
our child will only ever hear big, and then that's the only word they know that's associated with that. So in general, when we're just playing with words and language, if we think the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, that helps us to remember to use different kinds of words, even if our child may not know that word yet. The richer our language, the richer their language will also be.
I think that's so well said. And look, I love a good baby talk with a baby, but like my mom was like, "You talk to your kids like they're adults." And I'm like, "Well, they can handle it. They're fine." And I mean, you give me a little baby and I will baby talk all the way for that baby because I just love my little newborns. But I talk to my kids and I use those big words too. And I don't know where I saw it, but someone said like, look, if your kid can identify like dinosaur names, like they can handle your big words, like you can talk to that. Like if they can say Tyrannosaurus Rex, like you can use more language rich words in your everyday life. Like they will pick it up and they will use it. And it's really cool when they use it and they're able to describe things better. And it goes into not just academics, right? Like emotional regulation and describing what's going on in their brain and their experiences and their feelings. And it just keeps growing. So maybe that's going to be like the title of this podcast. Is that what you just said?
I love it. I
I
love it.
know.
Yeah, so many great things. If we really just think about how can I create a language rich environment for my child, it that kind of encompasses all of the things that
It
we've
does.
talked about. Hmm.
It totally does. Okay. Well, I love to keep these episodes nice and short, but I do want to give you an opportunity to talk about what I'm going to link in the show notes, which
Yeah.
is a little freebie, right?
Yes. So I put together something just to help all of our listeners get a quick start to all of the things we've talked about. So it's a quick start guide to a language-rich learning moments in everyday routines. So it's really just how to put this whole conversation into action. And that you can grab that at speakjoy.com/kid, which I know that will be in the show.
I will, and I will put your contact information and your website below. Thank you so much. I know you're on vacation and you still decided to join us. So thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again really soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Think Like a Kid. If this episode gave you an idea, a reframe, or a little win, the best way to say thank you is to share it with a friend or leave a quick review. It helps more parents and teachers find these conversations, and honestly, it means the world to me. Until next time, friend, keep meeting kids where they're at and keep thinking like a kid.